In this video I'm going to demonstrate how to use the Fury Photoshop action. So what we're going to be doing here is using this photo to create this effect using the action in essentially just one step. So a few other examples I've got here that I made using this action. I went from this to this, from this to this, and you can see we can easily manipulate the colors. From this to this. Alright, so let me just close these down and start off with our photo. So a few things you need to just double check before we run this action. Just ensure that your photo layer is set as the background, so you should have that background text and the lock symbol. Though if you don't, if you have your photo and it's not there, just go to Layer, New, Background from Layer, and it just sets it as the background. Next, still in our Layer panel, just go to this top icon here and go to Panel Options. Just down the bottom, make sure that Add Copy to Copy Layers and Groups is selected. Click OK. Next, go to the Image menu, go to Mode. Just make sure you're in RGB color mode and 8 bits of channel selected. And lastly, just make sure you're using a good size photo. Mine's 1100 by 1600, so that's a good size. Cancel. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is create a new layer called Brush, and it must be all lowercase for the action to work, so just remember that. Click OK. And so what we're going to do in this layer here, with the brush layer selected, we need to brush over our photo the areas that we want to keep, and all the effects are going to concentrate around that area that we brushed. So let me just start brushing here. So you can use any color, and actually I've got one that I brushed a little earlier. Where is it? Okay, so I have my setup here, just got my brush layer, and you can see that I've brushed over the area that I want to keep, and so all the effects are going to grow around this area and a little bit inside. Alright, so with that done, we need to load up the Actions panel. So we go to the Window menu, select Actions, and the Actions panel will pop up here. Go to the top right hand corner icon, select Load Actions, and just select the Fury.atn file, and it will appear here. So that's it, that's all you've got to do. The action runs for around 3 minutes, so you're just going to have to click play and then come back in a couple minutes time and go from there. So I'll fast forward the video, and from then we will jump to Layer panel and I'll talk about all the ways to customize it. Alright, so the action's finished and you can see our default result here. So whenever you run the action, you'll get these golden glows. We can change all those colors. So let's now go into the Layer panel. So I'll minimize the Actions panel here, and over in our Layer panel we have a lot of folders that are open. Now the very first thing you want to do is collapse all those folders, but a really quick way to do that is with the layer that's already selected, the Fury folder, hold down Control Alt on a PC, Command Option on a Mac, and just click on that arrow, and what that'll do is quickly collapse all the folders so everything's neat and right up. So if you've got more of my actions or any other actions, just remember that because it's a real time saver. Alright, so the very first thing that I like to do when the action's finished is the area that I really want to be in focus, say the face, I like to make more prominent. So you can see that it's a bit dark, there's a lot of effects sort of hanging over the top of it, and you'll want to do this pretty much every time you run the action. And so how you do that is if you go into the Fury folder here, and the very top folder called Photo, go inside that, and then go down to this layer here, it's called Brush White into the Mask. And so that's what you're going to do. So if I select the mask, and just grab a white brush, hit B to get my brush out, and if I brush over his face, you can see that we bring back the original color and it overrides all the effects. So you're going to want to do this pretty much every time you've run the action. So what I'll do now is we'll come back to the color options folder. I'll quickly talk about these two. So every time you run the action, you're going to get a different result. So all these lines and glows, even the background texture, is going to be unique every single time you run the action, even if you used this same brushed area. Okay, so if you want to run the action again, just shift select these three, delete, and just click play in the action again. All right. Now this top layer here, add sharpening. Just by default, I've turned it on. So you can see that it does boost the sharpening quite a lot. But if you're moving a lot of elements around, I would recommend turning it off and then sharpening it again when you're finished. Because if I move this layer around, you can see that it leaves a bit of like residue around. So if I say these lines here to the left, if I delete those, you're still going to be left with, you can see the sharpening lines there. So just be wary of that. Okay. Now we'll come back to the color options folder. So let's go inside the Fury folder. So this dot folder again is our photo layer. So that's the one you want to look at first. You want to brush white into that layer for the areas that you really want to be clear and in focus. Now there are a couple of extra layers here to adjust the look of this. So what I like to do is, if I don't want him to be his original color, I can just turn on this layer here, black and white. So you can see now the color's gone. But if you want just a little bit of color, what you can do is just simply adjust the opacity of this layer. So I just click and drag on that word opacity to the left, takes it to 0%, and I can just bring it up a little bit. So now it's on 43%, and you can just see a little hint of color. And so I can like brush white down here on his hand, so you can see when I brush that, it becomes a lot more prominent. So just remember that. Boost brightness, if it's a bit dark, you can just turn that one on, or you could actually use it, if you double click on it, just play around with these handles to adjust the brightness and contrast. The aim is to have your photo sort of seamlessly blend in with all the other elements around it. Alright, so that's the folder, that's the photo folder. Now this layer below, randomized color, this is a good one just to quickly check out. So if you double click on this and you drag this slide around, you can quickly change the color of all those, let's just call it flames. So play around with that one there. Particles folder, that's all the bits that are, so if I just turn that on and off, you can see they're all the little pieces that have exploded out everywhere. So if you go inside this folder, we have all these different layers, so you can move them around individually. You can even duplicate them to create more. So if I just hit Control J, I've just made a copy and I can move that out. So you can make that super detailed. Got this layer here called Use Color Particles. If you switch that one on, it will fill in all those broken up pieces with a color. So you just double click on that there, and you can change the color. Another thing to remember with these folders, anything that's got this white box on it is a mask. So if I just grab a black brush, I can just brush away anything I don't want. So say I don't want this patch by his shoulders, just brush black into that and it's gone. If I brush white, brings it back. So if there's anything you don't like, you can temporarily hide them using masks. This layer here, vertical light, I'll turn this one on and off so you can see what that's doing. So any hotspots, it's going to add these vertical light streaks, and what you can do again is duplicate it, Control J to make it more prominent. You can move it up higher so it extends up. Okay, glow lines, I'll turn this one on and off. What I'll do, I'll just turn off, you can see, but when I turn that on, when I turn that folder off, you can still see the lines. That's coming from the add sharpening, so I'm just going to turn that off for the moment. So you can see that the glow lines, all these squiggly lines, and if you go inside, there are 4 different layers, and so you can freely just move those around. You can duplicate them. So what I like to do is I'll select the entire folder and I'll go Control J. So I've just made a copy of the folder. I can move that folder, say, up, and then I can play around with, you know, rotating these. And something else I like to also do, if you want to add more variation, you can go to Filter, Distort Wave, and play around with all these settings. Not sure what results I'm going to get here, but if I click OK, you can see that it just randomizes the positioning of all those lines. So you can go through one by one and yeah, just mess around with that. Okay, I'll turn that one off. So going down, I'll come back to that one, but we'll go into the flames folder. So if I turn this one on and off, you can see that that's where all our glows are coming from, and this flame looking texture. So go inside, there's a bunch of different layers. This top one, actually these two and this one are the smoke layers. So if I just turn these top two off, you can see, just look over in this corner, that it's just that black smoke. I'll just move it around. So that just adds to the overall effect. But if you wanted to, you can double click on this box and, you know, you can make it like a lighter smoke. You can even change the color completely if you want to get a bit crazy. So that's that. Add glow. This layer here just adds a bit of glow around those areas. Again, you can change the color. More layers here. You can freely move these parts around, and yeah, anything with this colored box on top you can recolor. So just like that. Alright, that's the flames folder. Now if you go up into this top one, flame glow extras, so we've got 3 different layers in here. They're all turned off, but if you just flick them on, large glow, that'll just really boost up the glow around all the hot spots. So that's that one. Then you've got vertical glow. So turn this one on, the lights actually shoot up vertically, but if you want to make this a bit more prominent, what I like to do is, if you hit this arrow right in the corner here, double click on motion blur, you bring up the blur settings. So what you can do is you can increase this, and the blur is going to go, it's going to scale up a lot taller. You can crunch it back down, but I like to usually just crank it up a bit, and you can move that up higher, or you can even duplicate it, Control J if you want it to be really bright. So just mess around with that. You've got horizontal glows. This one just goes in the opposite direction, so you can flick multiple on and have glows going everywhere. It's up to you. Okay, so this layer here, photo base. So if I just turn off the photo folder, so the photo base is this layer here. It's just your photo really blended in with the background. So that's why I created this folder here called photo. It's for you to choose and brush in the areas you want to be really prominent. So that's the photo base layer. Now a little tip with the photo base layer mask. If you double click on it, you get these properties here for the mask. So if you adjust the feathering handle, you can make the edges. So if you look around his helmet and his shoulders, if I bring this down to 0, the edges are much more defined and cut. But if I feather it, you can see it starts to really blend in with the elements around. So by default, I've actually got it up pretty high. It's so that it blends nice and seamlessly with all the other background elements. So just keep that in mind. Texture color. This one here, you can quickly color the background texture. So again, you just click on this box here, and you can play around with different colors like that. Let's turn that one off. Background texture, the folder here. So there's different textures in here. So you can mess around with duplicating those if you want the texture to be more prominent. Okay. Background texture fill. This one just sits in the background and sort of seamlessly blends this background texture with your background color. So you can see without it, it kind of harshly stops there, but if you turn that one on, you get a much more seamless blend. And you got your background color here. So if you turn the background color off, it actually bleeds down onto your original photo. Now this isn't the best example because my original photo has a black background, but say if there were trees and mountains or whatever in the background, they're actually going to show through now, so that effect's just going to sit on top of it, which is worth checking out on every photo that you use because it can look really cool. So let's keep that in mind. So that's the Fury folder. Now what I like to do after I've messed around with, you know, duplicating some of these layers and repositioning and whatever, I go inside the color options folder and mess around with all these. So from the top here we've got adjust brightness. So this is like your master controller for your brightness. It can actually come up a little bit. Adjust this one. I think that one's fine. Overall color tint, by default this is turned off. So if you turn this one on, what it'll do is apply a color fill over your entire design. And if you double click on it, you've got this handle here called density, so you can apply just a little bit of blue, heaps of blue. You can use this drop down menu here to scroll through different colors. Alright, so that's that. Use a single color. So by default this one's turned off. If you flick this one on, it'll fill it just an entire color, just one color, so you can just double click on this box here and play around with these if you just want a single color. Reveal original color brush mask. So what this layer does, if you brush white into it, it'll actually reveal the original colors of the photo. Okay, so it override any other color and it will use the original photo colors, so you can see that at work. So I'll just turn that one off. Now these here are all color options. So the way you use these is all you do is flick the folder on, the visibility for it. So like you can go down and yeah, flick these on. And what I also like to do is combine them. So with the folder selected, I just click the word opacity, drag to the left and right so I can adjust the opacity. So say I want just a little bit of that one. Let's say a little bit of this one. Go to the top here, leave that one on. We'll see what that's like with a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So anyway, just mess around with all those. If you really wanted to get into the nitty gritty of it all, you can go inside this each one of these folders and play around with the settings of each one of these layers. So that's generally it. That's how you use this action. So what I like to do is if I've moved around a lot of elements, I like to add a bit of overall sharpening. So I'll delete this one because I've moved a bit around. And what I'll do is I will merge the entire design onto one layer. So if I hold down Control, Shift, Alt and E, what it'll do is it will flatten the entire design on one layer. And what I like to do then, if I go Filter, Other High Pass, I usually set this amount to 2, and then I set the blend mode to linear light. And you see that's way too sharp, so I adjust the opacity just a little bit, about 28%. So that's might go a fraction more, at 37%. So that's nice and sharp now. And that's it. I'm finished. Took no time at all. And what I'm going to do now is just show you what we've created, what you can create with this action in just a couple minutes really. So keep in mind that every time you run the action you're going to get a different result. So say if you run the action and you don't like the combination of where the glows and all the lines are, you can either spend a little bit of time moving the elements around manually, or just run the action again and you come back to it and see what you got. Alright. If you've got any questions or need help with the action, just email me. And thanks.